like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel. Hi, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Before we start, I just want to say real quick that the first time I saw you live was Rest in Peace Painkiller Tour.
Wow.
You guys came to Portland with Judas Priest.
I remember that.
At the Memorial Coliseum.
I remember the show.
And I was in about the third row, and you were wearing this really cool shirt with this kind of head of kind of spiky looking head.
Guy.
I don't know if you remember your shirt or anything.
You know, I wore a lot of Pusshead stuff. No, not Pusshead. Alchemy stuff. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Metallica was mostly Pusshead. I had this Alchemy stuff that I got. I wonder if that's where it came from. I got that out of England, a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
The thing was, I have the identical shirt on, and when you came on stage, I was like, I saw your shirt, and I'm like going, look at my shirt. You kind of looked down and kind of went, fuck, because you had somebody like staring right across with your stage clothes on.
Funny. You know, it's funny, man. I love rock t-shirts, right? And in fact, I bought this one. I went out to see Don Jameson with Hookers and Blow the other night, right? Which is Dizzy's band. And so they came through. I'd never met Dizzy before. You know, we played Rock in Rio together. I'd never shared the stage with him other than that. And that was like probably his first gig, I think he said, with Guns N' Roses was 91, right? We went actually after the Priest Megadeth tour right down to South America, and we played Rock in Rio together.
Oh, awesome.
And but yeah, so I just saw this. It was one of the support bands. I'm like, that's a freaking cool t-shirt, man. So you know, I like picking up stuff, whether it's, you know, local bands, smaller bands, big bands, whatever. But yeah, it's funny, that was a cool era. In fact, now that you mentioned, I think I know the t-shirt that you're talking about, and I don't have it, of course, anymore, but
yeah, my wife has mine in a box somewhere. I tried to find it real quick just to see if you remembered it, just because I thought it was funny. I got mine here in Portland I'm in Vancouver, Washington, but there was a place called Pipes Palace, because back then to get really cool rock shirts, you had to go to like a tobacco store.
Sure.
You know what I mean? They'd sell bongs, but it was a tobacco store.
I remember when I was a kid, I'd look in the back of the magazines and they had Roadie Tees, it was called, right? And I remember ordering some t-shirt. You know, of course, it takes 3 months to get there, you know, it's whatever. Whereas now, you know, I'll buy stuff online if I'm like, yeah, I need a Thin Lizzy t-shirt. You know, you can go anywhere online and, you know, it shows up to you pretty much within a day or two, you know?
Yeah, but back then you had to hunt them down.
And hunt them down, or if you know, and you know, or you went to the show. That's why I love seeing, you know, Mike Portnoy's got great shirts. You know, he always shows up at gigs or rehearsals and stuff. I'm like, dude, where'd you get that shirt? You know, some bitchin' Van Halen shirt or something, you know, or I'll see something, go, man, I went to that tour, 1980 Invasion Van Halen, you know, and obviously they probably didn't, you know what I mean? Because sometimes I see people younger than me, you know, wearing some cool Motorhead shirt. It's like, there's no way you went to that show. You probably weren't even born yet. You know, where'd you get that fucking thing? You know, so I'm going to try to find it and buy it myself, you know?
Yeah. It's rare that we still have any of those, you know, but,
well, look, it's kind of our face, isn't it? It's sort of, if this is our face, this is our resume, right? Our shirt is our resume. It's like, this is who I am. This is the tribe I come from, and this is my life, and this is who I am. It's you're introducing ourselves before we've even said a word.
Right. And I played in bands in the 80s too, and kind of our uniform was a black leather jacket of some kind,
right?
Of some kind of t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
501s and probably white Nikes, and
always white Nikes.
And that's kind of was the rig, and then all the glam came out, and we were like, no, I don't know what the hell's that. You know what I mean? And so, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, you kind of knew people by their
drive through between Chicago and Milwaukee. There's a great Nike outlet. And of course you have one in Portland, of course, or
right
back in Nike. That's where Nike's from, right? The outlet, the factory, right? But, you know, we'd always stop there all the time and stock up on some Nikes. You know, we could buy them a little cheaper, and then we'd have bitchin' shoes. So we were always kind of known as the band that had really awesome high tops, you know.
Exactly. You had to have those white, and we always got the white ones because they just look dope with everything else. But all right, let's get into it here. Metal Allegiance is set to do Anaheim special 10th anniversary show on January 25th at the House of Blues in Anaheim.
Right.
And for those who aren't familiar, can you give us a little bit of backstory on Metal Allegiance?
Sure. So Metal Allegiance, the core four is me, Mark Menghi, Mike Portnoy, Alex Skolnick, and we're kind of the principal guys who recorded the two studio records that we have on Nuclear Blast. And look, it started on the Motorhead motorboat back in 2014. It spun out of something that we'd already had in place called Metal Masters, which was kind of a clinic turned into performance kind of evening. Guys
Cool.
like me, Frank Bella, whoever, we would kind of do a little short clinic, and then we would turn into a jam, and and then it became bigger with guys from Pantera and Slayer and Geezer Butler and everybody joining us. Even Steve Vai, I think at one point. No, Steve Vai either joined the Metal Masters or maybe he came in. Maybe he came in with Metal Allegiance. I forgot, but so that it quickly moved into Metal Allegiance. So that it could become a recording artist. And we play probably half the night is our original material. The other half is familiar metal tunes that people know by Maiden and Priest and Motorhead and Ozzy and all that kind of stuff. So, I quickly discovered, we all share the same record collection. And again, once you have the shirt, right? It says this is my record collection, right? So
Exactly.
so it's fun, playing with people that, we grew up in different households, different parts of the world, and yet somehow these records, these bands, we all speak a common language through the music, and that's really what Metal Allegiance is.
Awesome. So can you talk a little bit about your core members and how does it work with two bass players as core members?
Menghi and I switch off. Initially on that first record, I played most of the bass. We both wrote on the record. In fact, Menghi's one who said, he goes, look, let's make a thrash record. So we did. And for me and Skolnick, that was kind of easy because that's where that was our day jobs,
Yeah, you had some practice at that one.
Yeah, and I discovered very quickly with this whole thing, Mike Portnoy is just a huge music fan, man. I mean, you go to his house, his basement is basically the Guitar Center meets, Tower Records. He's got a ton of music down there. He's got a ton of drum kits. He's just living out his his childhood fantasy of being a rock star drummer. And it's great because his passion, I think, is what helps him get all these gigs. He knows these songs as a fan, and and that's how I like to know songs. If someone says, hey, you want to record something? I say, sure. I say, give it to me in advance because I don't want to just walk in the studio, especially these kind of metal. It's complicated. There's a lot of complexities to it. So I get it. I like to listen to it for a few days or weeks or whatever and become a fan of the song before I go play it. I think you could tell when your heart is in it or if it's just your head sort of reading something off a sheet of paper. I like to, just for my personal satisfaction, I like to be a fan of it. So, that's Mike, the ultimate fan. And this is his metal gig, as he said, he wanted a metal gig. He's a huge metal fan. Even though he's made his mark as a, sort of prog drummer, if you will. Metal is in his heart too. Skolnick, of course, pedigree with Testament, but then, he went on to go, become an educated jazz musician. And so he speaks both of those dialects of music very well, he speaks metal and jazz,
Yeah, he's got a lot of tools in the toolkit.
Exactly. And me, of course, thrash background, my whole pedigree with Megadeth and everything. And and then obviously outside of that, I've done a gazillion things, and people know that I'm pretty broad based, and just like my high school band instructor wrote on my report card one time, it said, David needs to broaden his horizons. Stop making everything sound like Led Zeppelin. So here many years later, 40 years later, I'm broadening my horizons. So for me, I like playing on a lot of different stuff. And Menghi's a younger guy, he's in his 30s, late 30s. So, when he came into this, when we started cutting this record, or maybe he's early 40s now, but when we started, he brought in a different, an era of a different generation. Obviously, Pantera was a huge impact on him. I love Pantera. I love the guys. I know them as gentlemen. We took Pantera out as our support act. So they weren't a musical impact to me the way they were a musical impact to someone like Menghi, who was,
right.
like for me, Kiss did that for me when I was a teenager, right? As a young musician. So, Mark's impact with this, and I think some of the people that he brought in to participate on it, Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, these people. His ear's a little younger, I would say, so it brought in some different people for us to participate on Mastodon, like with Troy Sanders and stuff like that. So we each kind of hold a pillar, of the four pillars that we build the house within, between the four of us.
Absolutely. Well, Metal Allegiance is known for basically having tons of guest artists. Can you talk a little bit who's on the roster for the upcoming show? And I know you have some surprise people coming, but
yeah, there's always some surprise people, and maybe some people even we don't know about today, but next week, so they'd be like, hey, let's have him come up, And I mean, here's the thing. It's not a jam session, you know what I mean? So
right.
as much as we keep it this casual feel about it, we study the tunes, we rehearse, we put the time in to make it be a great performance, so that it's a concert, It's not just a bunch of drunken metal dudes up there ripping through some bar standards,
Right.
So we want the quality to be great. And then, but along with it, even though whether it's our songs or it's some familiar, cover songs, I'd like to think we play some of our own songs, and to that degree, look, Chuck Billy and Alex Skolnick are there, so there's that connection. Bobby Blitz is there from Overkill. Me and Chris Poland will be performing together, so you can kind of
Awesome.
put together like, then maybe they're going to play some of those songs, some Megadeth or Overkill or Testament or whatever. John Bush, is a favorite moment in Anthrax's history were those couple of records that he was on, and I love John. I got to know him years ago when I first moved to LA. The Armored Saint guys were some of the first guys I met, through Dave and out at the clubs and stuff, and remained good friends with those guys all these years later. So, and John is just a fantastic singer. So, it's fun to, touch on a little bit of his catalog as well.
Yeah. Wasn't he on Fistful of Metal?
No, that was actually Neil Turbin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, John Bush was in Sound of White Noise, and the other record, it escapes my tongue right now what it is, but there were two records that he did in the 90s, kind of the 90s, which was a very, a challenging time for thrash metal bands. You know what I mean? We all went through a bit of a reinvention, or a sort of recalibrating to sort of, how do we get through grunge and new metal? And, look, I love the 90s. A lot of great music came out of it. Megadeth, we were super busy during the 90s, and we took a lot of other groups out with us, everything from Paradise up to Stone Temple Pilots, Alice in Chains, Cold Chamber, Corn. We broadened our horizons big time. Godsmack supported us in the UK, so a lot of bands have went on to be icons of that decade, and had their own generation of fans. It was great to have a front row seat to it, and go peek out behind the curtain and see what they're doing is kind of raw, and in their early days that they were, to see them become these global superstars that they became is really a cool thing.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, Dream Theater made it in the 90s. I mean, they came out against all the grunge kind of stuff and thrived. And I'd have to say Cryptic Writings did quite well in the 90s as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cryptic Writings, we've talked about this before. We had a new manager come in, and we went through a management change. We considered, a couple of different people, and we settled on the one. And their thing was, look, you're an American band. Your biggest following is still in America as a single country,
Right.
and that we can weather the storm if we sort of, play nice with radio, and we're already able to write these kind of songs. I mean, Countdown to Extinction set the bar that, look, we can write, and even Euthanasia, we can write songs that are still cool. They're metal. We're not compromising who we are, yet we can really explore, some deeper melodies and lyrical topics and musicality that will play nice to a sort of broader mainstream audience. We had that skill within the band that in that decade, to do that.
Mhm.
So, that's probably why that was such a, favored, decade, because we had Rust in Peace, which said, you don't believe us, fuck you, right? And then
Yeah, oh yeah.
everything from Countdown, Euthanasia to Cryptic Writings, and even Risk, I guess. But I think Cryptic Writings was a real sweet spot, and that's a great record. I love listening to that because side A is all, it's kind of like the Black Album. Side A is all the big songs you hear, on the
Yeah,
radio.
it's all kind of hits. So
Yeah. And then the other one, then you got Disintegrators and, all these other things, on She Wolf and, these other kind of tracks that are, more of the, kind of metal tracks.
yeah, a little more throwback to the old style. Can you give us a little bit of a preview of some of the songs that'll be on the set list for this big show coming up?
Well, not really.
Meant to be a surprise.
Somebody asked me that the other day, said, hey, can we post the set list? I said, no. I said, why would you do that? Because then if people don't like it, they won't come, And I think it was for Kings of Thrash. I said, obviously people are going to come because they know. And we did sneak out a few. We said, look, we're going to go really deep. We're going to play Black Friday. I mean, we're going all in, man. We're playing some deep, deep shit here. But yeah, like I said, just, look, there's members of Testament, Overkill, Anthrax, Megadeth. There you go. That's enough.
Good enough. Good enough. So, is there a new record coming out for Metal Allegiance?
It's funny. Menghi and I have been talking about this for the last, I don't know, year or so, and of course, now that we're kind of fully free of COVID and things are set back on track, first we're kind of talking about, should we do some more shows, and that's always schedule related, as is making a new record, because making these Metal Allegiance records, it is a lot of work. It's funny, the writing actually happens pretty quickly. We get the bulk of it done within a week or two. It's pretty fast because it seems like we all have a ton of ideas. We just throw them on the table, and so the framework of it is put together pretty quickly. And then then as we write it, it's interesting because none of us are like the lead singer of the band,
Right.
So as we compose, we start thinking about we could hear so and so on this song, and maybe we should.
Yeah, who would be good for this one?
And quite honestly, we kind of let the song call out to the vocalist, which is a different way of writing. That and it's funny because Mike wrote a ton of lyrics for Dream Theater, and then by the time we get to Metal Allegiance, said, "All right, Mike, you're up." He goes, "Dude, I'm retired from lyric writing. I come on, yeah, come on, pitch in here, buddy." But Mike's the ultimate arranger. He's really great at arranging things. And me, Mark, and Alex are kind of the riff writer guys. But Mike also has brought some really cool vocal melodies and some things, kind of inadvertently. In fact, he was singing a demo on something on the first record, and Wait Until Tomorrow. And as I heard him sing it, he was like, "Lying down tomorrow." And I said, "Dude, are you singing Wait Until Tomorrow?" He goes, "Fuck, I don't know what I'm singing. I'm just making up some bullshit just to kind of get the melody down, right?"
Right.
I think that's what it is. So I started writing the lyric around
based on that one line.
what I thought he was saying, So it's funny how something will inspire you, So as far as a new record goes, I think just us getting back together again, getting on stage, feeling the love, having the fun, and just going through it all again. That's always what sort of piques the interest, like every band, man. I mean, as long as you're having fun and you're enjoying it is number one. Obviously, look, if you can make some money and have a success with it so that it sort of sustains itself, even better,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the show's coinciding with the 2024 Namm Show. And I was going to ask, you want to talk a little bit about the Namm Show?
Sure. I mean, look, Namm for me, I love Namm. And this year my Ellefson Coffee Company, as in that one right there.
Nice.
Side. We are exhibiting on the main floor with our own booth. And so booth 5030 in Hall D, which is the main floor there inside the convention center. So we're super excited about it. We're having some artists come over to sign, do some autograph appearances next Saturday on the 28th, I think that is. No, is that 25, 6, 7, 27th? We're going to do a premiere of a sneak preview, a trailer of the Nick Mensa movie. This Was My Life, the Story of Nick Mensa. So we're gonna
Yeah,
roll.
that was my next question.
We're gonna pop
So talk
that.
about that a little bit about the movie.
Yeah. So look, I got approached a couple years back to narrate it, and said, of course, naturally, and Nick was a dear friend to me, as he came into the band. Look, he was brought in to kind of be an understudy to Chuck Beeler, drum tech, crew guy, which he was not such a fan of, but we knew then he was a colorful character, and when it came time to make the drum change in 1989, Nick was the obvious choice. In fact, I remember when Dave said, he goes, we were talking about it, and he said, "All right, just why don't you go audition him?" So we and Nick went into a rehearsal room up in North Hollywood and ripped through some tunes. And Nick was very excitable, played super super fast. And I said, "Whoa, buddy, pull it back, man." But Nick's he's a field drummer. He plays from the heart. He was that guy, right? So he was very uncompromising in that, that if he wasn't feeling it, and if it didn't sit right, and his heart was something, he was not a guy you could manipulate and sort of go, yeah, but dude, there's a lot of money in it, or yeah, there's this or that, and of course we all play the game. We have to, it's business, right? And so we all, do our part. But he was a guy who had pretty good, I'd say really good integrity with that, and he even talks about that very clearly in the movie. So there's, the movie is the story of his life, growing up in a musical household. His dad is a super well-known woodwind player, saxophone player. I mean, look, he played the theme to Pink Panther for
Oh,
Henry.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, so start there, right? And
Wow.
We'd see Nick would be starting a tour, and he'd be like, yeah, my dad just played on a Madonna record yesterday. And, one time I remember he said, yeah, Pavarotti was over at the house having dinner with my dad.
So he was in like the Henry Mancini Orchestra,
Yeah,
or
I
he
think
played in the studio.
exactly, did a lot of studio work. The Toto guys all knew him very well. They did a lot of records together. So, Nick grew up around that. And so there's it's cool to hear from his parents, who I've known, of course, but to have them weigh in on kind of the story. And his sister Danya, of course, this movie, I think keeps Nick, keeps just the whole thing alive for her, you know what I mean? And in a way. So she really likes it, so she's always appreciative of the fans, really being so dear, to Nick. So it's a cool story. It's his whole life story. Obviously, there's, a Megadeth part of it. Yeah, it's good. So we're just finishing the editing of it now. I was hoping it would have been done in December, but we got a couple things to do. And then from there, we're going to look at, release dates and all this kind of stuff. Hopefully we'll have a little more information on that next week by the time we do the premiere of some next steps and some things with it. So I think fans will.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I have to say that, I've been a Megadeth fan since the first record, and but the era of Nick, you, Marty, you know what I mean? That stretch of the band, for me, is like classic Megadeth, and definitely my favorite lineup for the band.
For many, it is,
and Nick was so special on the drums, and I'm a drummer, so he was a big influence. And
not just even as a musician, just as a personality, as a likable character in the band, a guy who also was very fearless. He was kind of like the lead singer behind the drums, and, he challenged things. He'd say, well, how about we do it this way, or how about we do that? Or suddenly we'd be at some band meeting and he would just lob some bomb over the wall that we'd be like, whoa, we didn't see that coming, but he would, he always challenged status quo, and he was, he listened to a lot of stuff too. I remember he turned me on to Sepultura. I knew of them, and then he started playing me their records in the back of the bus one day and really doing deep dive. And he was air drumming to it. Like he was in it. He really knew it, So, that's, I think, a thing that I always appreciated about Nick is that, when something grabbed his heart musically or creatively, man, he really went all in on it, So he brought a lot to those records, as we all did. That was a very collaborative time in the band's career.
Mm-hmm.
I think reason we had the success that we did. Of course, it was also our time, MTV supported us, radio, so there's a lot of elements that lined up for that. But yeah, we definitely had the goods as a band. I mean, we were pretty much, I don't think there were any rivals. You know what I mean? If anyone came at us, we would settle the score pretty quickly. You know what I mean? It's like we could definitely hold our own against anybody.
Yeah, I mean, we had the age old thing back then of I'd be down at the waterfront wearing a Megadeth shirt, and somebody's got a Metallica shirt, and we're
Right.
like all like, you know, and like a friend of mine, he goes, I just got this new Megadeth record, and I really don't care for it. And I go, really? And I go, well, I've got this new Metallica record, and I don't care for that at all. And he goes, well, you want to swap? And I'm like, absolutely. And once I did, I was like, oh, I'm so much happier. and I know that's like an age old feud, but
Yeah.
I felt that Megadeth back then, you guys were putting out records like I think almost every year,
Pretty much the cycles were shorter. It's funny, back
yeah,
with the Beatles, it was every 6 months. With Kiss, it was about every 9 months in the 70s. And then, yeah, by the time the 80s, early 90s, I mean, these tours, you would tour for, 9 months, maybe a year, and then you'd pretty quickly turn another record around. You know what I mean? So the
mhm,
cycles were maybe 18 months, 12 months to 18 months. We were turning stuff around pretty quick. Now tour cycles just go forever because the Beatles didn't tour the world. They'd play in England and then they'd play America and then it was over. They don't make another album. So, but now tours, we go all over the world, so things take a lot
yeah,
longer. But the creative output, especially during the '90s, was I think vastly superior to a lot of what else was out there. And there weren't many of us. There was us and Metallica and
right,
Anthrax, John Bush in the band, of course. So they stayed in the game with kind of a reinvigorated new sound. But otherwise, look, there was Seattle music was making all the
yeah,
plays. Then new metal by night. I remember taking Korn out with us in '95 on the Euthanasia tour. It's clearly that was either going to go away quick or it was going to change the world, and it did the latter. You know what I mean? it,
right,
it just quickly revamped all of heavy music. So yeah, so there was really, I mean, us and Metallica were the main ones. I mean, Slayer didn't really change at all. They just kind of did what they did, and that music took another 10 years before it really kind of became in vogue again. And in fact, I remember when we did American Carnage, Megadeth Slayer, we were playing it was Universal Amphitheater. I think it was the last show of the North American tour. And I was standing behind Lombardo's drum kit. They let a bunch of people just kind of hang out there, right? No, this is very casual for a big metal gig, but a lot of people, chicks and dudes hanging out, drinking and whatnot. And I'm just thinking, like, this was a whole new fan base. These are not
right.
the people I grew up with. They were a whole new fan base, and Slayer was like this cool hipster thrash metal band. So Slayer, they kind of played the long game. You know what I mean? Whereas Megadeth, we decided to pivot quickly, and we had such big success coming off of Rust in Peace that we knew Countdown was a very important record to really adapt, and dig deep and really make something that was, impactful, and that would stand the test of time. And then we did the same thing with Cryptic Writings. It was like,
Yeah.
I remember that new manager went to Marty and said, Marty, we really need you. We need your sense of melody. We need your sense of, you have a different kind of musicality you bring to this. We really, really need you. So dig deep and bring it, So and we did.
Well, it totally worked. So,
It did. It did. It did.
it sounds like there's a fantastic show, and that's just next week. So, is there anything that we missed, Dave, that you wanted to give a shout out about, or anything we didn't talk about that you
No,
wanted
I
to
think
throw in?
that's good, man. Metal Allegiance in the evening, some coffee during the day to wake up after the show over at the Namm floor. So if you got a Namm badge, come and see us. Otherwise, go see.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks. I just want to thank you, Dave, for taking the time to talk with me and sharing with us. And fans need to make it a point, if they can, to catch the Metal Allegiance January 25th at the House of Blues in Anaheim.
Perfect. Thanks, Bryce.
All right. Thanks again, Dave.
Ready. Bye.
Bye.
If you like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel.